Senate Transportation Committee will come to order. Welcome, everyone. Let's start out here. We'll open the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, I'd like to just go down and have everyone briefly introduce yourself, who's on the committee. Senator Spruill, could we start down with you, work our way this way?
Good evening. Senator Spruill, 5th District, statewide.
Scott Serva, represent the 36th Senate District, including the longest stretch of the most congested highway in the United States of America, I-95.
Hi, Senator Jennifer Boysko, representing the 33rd District. That is including the Dulles Toll, parts of the Dulles Toll Road, the Greenway, and Route 7.
Hi, Jennifer McClellan, Senate District 9, which includes northeast corner of the city of Richmond, eastern Henrico, all of Charles City County, the town of Ashland, and a little piece of Hanover.
Good afternoon. I'm State Senator Barbara Favola, and I represent portions of 3 jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, so a large part of Arlington, but part of Fairfax, part that's near the Potomac River, and I also have 6 precincts in Loudoun. So, welcome.
Steve Newman, Bedford.
Senator Lionel Spruill. Oh, I'm sorry. No. I'm Senator John Cosgrove, 14th Senate District. From Knott's Island, North Carolina to the city of Franklin.
Bill D. Steff, Virginia Beach.
Dave Suderline, Roanoke Valley in Powers, Southwest Virginia.
Mark Peake, 22nd Senate District from Lynchburg.
Todd Pillion, 40th Senate District. Lee Scott Wise, Washington with Grayson Smith in the city of Bristol. Half of Southwest Virginia.
Senator Obenchain.
Mark Obenchain, Central Shenandoah Valley.
And I am Senator Dave Marsden, who will be your committee chairman this year. And with us from the staff, if they could introduce themselves, starting with Lisa Wallmeyer from the Legislative Services staff.
Hi, I'm Lisa Wallmeyer from Legislative Services staff.
There we go.
Eric Bingham with the Senate Clerk's Office.
Alec Fishbein, Committee Operations.
And
I'm Jonathan Paul Moore. I'm IT support.
Very good. We have any pages here today?
I got 2 right
now. Oh, okay. No, I said we have any pages. Oh, there we go. Oh, bum. All right. Let's start out today with our first bill, Senator Vogel, who is has for us today 1 bill. I believe you have 2 that you would like to go by for the day.
Yes, Mr. Chair. 2 to go by for the day because we're working to make them perfect. We want you to love them, so they're going to come up next week. 1 that I am requesting that you strike.
And 1. All right, so Senate Bill 566 and 557 will go by to the day with no objection. They will go by for the day.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
She's requesting that Senate Bill 558 be stricken from the docket. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Have a motion and a second to strike Senate Bill 558. All in favor, say aye. Oh, excuse me. All right, let's do that on the board. So far, so good, Senator Vogel.
Okay.
And you do have 1 bill for us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I bring this bill to you at the request of a number of people in the community that I represent. What we have is a continued challenge with a lot of rural roads, with lots of cyclists, people who love to come out on weekends and bike all around the communities in Fauquier and Clark and Frederick County. But it poses a challenge because there are also roads with a lot of vehicular traffic, and it's a safety issue, both for the automobiles and for the cyclists. And so there isn't, frankly, a lot that I can do to help ameliorate the safety issue. But in considering what might make a difference is signage. So that's simply what this bill does. It says that the Department of Transportation shall erect signs on portions of highways that have a high pedestrian, or in this case, lots of cyclists. And the signs simply say, share the road. And the idea is that it gives you images or language or something to put you on notice that there are a lot of cyclists. And we do have on weekends, because there are a lot of these maps where people come to cycle and they can start in one area and go through all these long, the equivalent of trails really, but they're mapped out areas where cyclists go, and it really does create an issue. So this is my effort to try to do something to improve the safety of both the vehicular traffic and most of all for the people whose lives are at risk as cyclists, for people who aren't going slow and being careful.
Thank you, Senator Vogel. Are there questions from the committee? Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you. Senator Vogel, do you know the cost of these signs and the construction and erection of these signs?
So, Mr. Chair, I will say that I just had a conversation just right before I came up here with someone who raised that concern. We do not have a fiscal impact, but I do know that there would be a cost, and I'm not certain what that is. I think that would probably have been the objection of the Department of Transportation, that there is a cost associated with that. But unfortunately, I do not have a number.
Senator Cosgrove.
Unless anybody else wants to speak to the issue, I'll make a motion to report.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, can I withdraw?
Senator Servo.
Sorry, I have a question for the patron.
Yes, sir.
I was excited to see in your bill that you have in subsection C about crossing a solid line into a bike lane. However, my bill, which is also on the docket today, has a subsection C, which is much more broader, or I shouldn't say broader, but it's been refined over, I think, 4 bills now with input from the state police and other people, and it's
better.
It deals with exceptions and other things.
Right.
Yeah, right. And so
Okay.
my bill has passed the Senate like 4 times or 3 times, I think, killed in the House 3 times. And it seems to me, Mr. Chairman, that if the committee needs to adopt a consistent policy on what that subsection C ought to say in terms of a car getting into a bike lane.
So, Mr. Chair, I would simply say I'm 100% in favor of the best language that we can pass, of us being consistent. And I neglected to say that I do have somebody who's here from the Virginia Bicycling Federation. If you wish to hear from him, he's very supportive of this. I don't want to trespass on the committee's time, but I neglected to mention he's in favor of it. But back to your point, the senator's point, Mr. Chair, I am very willing to defer to better language, anything that makes it safer.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
One moment. Senator Servo.
I was about to do that, Mr. Chairman. I was going to move to conform her section C to subsection C in my Senate bill 437, which has a series of exceptions as to why a car could enter into a bike lane that were requested, I believe, by the Virginia State Police and other law enforcement when I did this bill previously.
Do we have a second for that, and then we'll discuss?
Second.
Second. Senator Suderline, do you?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to make a different motion. I was going to suggest that we strike the lines on this bill because, as memory serves, Senator Servo's bill does usually pass this committee and does pass the Senate, although the vote is a closer vote, and so that perhaps we could get to Senator Vogel's primary purpose of this legislation and deal with Senator Servo's priority in his own bill. And so my proposed amendment was going to be to strike the final 2 lines. So that's just my substitute motion.
Second the substitute motion.
Senator Servo?
It's fine with me. It seems to me 2 vehicles is better than 1 in terms of making sure the
Okay.
policy gets enacted, but it's fine with me.
Oh, okay. Well, that is the substitute motion is the prevailing motion. We have a second on that? Second. Thank you. All those, we can do a voice vote on this. All those in favor of the striking the last two lines, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We strike the last two lines. That's the amendment to the bill. Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have anything further other than to say I appreciate the committee's consideration of the policy and the safety of both the vehicular traffic, but most importantly, the cyclists.
Move to report the bill, sir.
Second.
Well, first, before we get into that, is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone to speak in excuse me, here we go.
Mr. Chairman, Champ Early, President of Virginia Bicycling Federation, we strongly support the bill.
As amended?
As amended.
Thank you. Anyone here opposed to the bill? Ms. Maxwell, how are you?
Mr. Chair, Joanne Maxwell from VDOT. We do not have a position on the bill, but as Senator Vogel has noted, the bill, we believe, would have significant costs associated with the fabrication of these signs.
Okay.
At this point, there's not a fiscal impact statement that's been published, but we are looking at potentially $2 million.
So is this a bill that we need to send to Finance? Okay. Is that, could we?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we report the bill and re-refer to Finance.
Second.
We have a first and a second to pass the bill and refer it to Finance. All in favor, say on your electronic voting board. If you could open that, say aye. Nay if you're opposed. Ayes 15, no 0. Good luck in Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have Senate Bill 592, which I will have a recommendation on that will expedite your work here. But I first want to explain what gave rise to this bill. I had a constituent who contacted us who needed a service performed at DMV for a form called abandoned vehicle process. And he went there. I think he'd gone a couple times, but he did not have internet access, and he didn't have a credit card to pay the fee. And so they told him that if you don't have a credit card, this all has to be done online, so we can't help you. So he contacted my office, and we said, well, we think we can help you on that because we always get good service from the commissioner's office. So we called up the commissioner's office to facilitate this transaction for him, and we were told, nope, they didn't have a workaround on that he would have to do one of these things. So we thought, possibly in his instance, maybe we'd just pay for him and he could reimburse us, do something to help him out. But instead, since there didn't seem to be a workaround, recognizing DMV wants to get everything online as much as possible, there still needed to be a workaround, drafted the bill to provide a workaround. Since then, been in contact with the commissioner's office and specifically the assistant commissioner, and I'm either she or the commissioner may be here today to speak to this. They have developed a workaround. So the bill, as long as the issue is taken care of, where this can be taken care of with a workaround, there's no need for the bill. And if there's an affirmation that they do indeed have a workaround, then I'll just ask you to strike the bill.
Thank you, Senator Hanger. And Commissioner Holcomb.
Mr. Chairman, Rick Holcomb, DMV Commissioner. First of all, let me publicly apologize to the senator and to his constituent. We absolutely had a workaround, and I apologize that my folks did not work with your constituent.
That's all right. You'll do a good job.
We will get it done, and we appreciate you striking the bill, and we will provide much better service in the future, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate
you.
Okay. So do we have a motion to strike the bill? Okay. Let's vote on that. The board.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I can quickly dispense of one. I would ask the committee to strike Senate Bill 755, which is my bill.
Do we have a second? All in favor of striking Senator Cosgrove's bill? Open the rolls. Yay if you want to strike, nay if you don't.
Thank you.
We also have a bill that, at the request of the patron, Senator Bell, Senate Bill 347, dealing with remote update of motor vehicle software, be stricken. Do I have a motion on Senate Bill 347 to strike?
So moved.
We have a motion to strike.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. Senate Bill 347 is stricken. Senator Servell has a time-sensitive witness, and if he could present Senate Bill. 437. Which bill, Senator Servell? Could you just tell us?
That's 437.
Yeah, that one.
Senator Servell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 437, which is one I think everybody here except for Delegate or Senator Pillion has seen, because it's been through this committee now, I think 3 times, and through the floor 3 times. But basically what it does 2 things. Number one is we just talked about a second ago. It makes it clear that you cannot use a bike lane to pass another vehicle. And the second thing is it creates a lower standard for traffic infraction liability for pedestrians or for people who injure pedestrians and cyclists in serious car accidents. So if you look at the language, basically the concept of bills, they're called vulnerable user bills. They've been enacted in now 19 other states at least. If you look in the first part, it defines who a vulnerable road user is. It's basically a pedestrian or a person operating a bike, electric vehicle, et cetera, but somebody's basically not in a car. Second thing is that it says if you seriously injure somebody, and that's consistent with the malicious wounding statute, so you have to basically cause open wound, serious concussion, broken legs, things like that. And what it does is it lowers the standard for holding somebody criminally liable from reckless driving, which is an existing longstanding law in Virginia, to operating a vehicle while careless or distracted. And the reason for that is many. And number one, pedestrians and cyclists, when they're in collisions with cars, that are obviously a severe disadvantage. And there's often little forensic record left about what happened, like there is when 2 cars collide with each other. And so it's often very hard to figure out what happened. Number 2, pedestrians and cyclists are often concussed if they're not dead. And so they frequently can't remember anything. And so they're at a disadvantage trying to prove criminal liability. Number 3, in terms of a reckless driving prosecution, it's often very difficult, if not impossible, to make a reckless driving prosecution when a pedestrian or cyclist is injured, A, because the pedestrian or cyclist is dead or can't remember, and B, the lack of forensics, and C, many times the driver will just simply say, I never saw him. And if that's all the driver says, and the pedestrian cyclist can't say anything, under Powers v. Commonwealth, which is a case, Supreme Court case, you basically can't meet your burden of proof for reckless driving. And so this sort of seeks to level the playing field for pedestrians and cyclists. I've personally been hit by cars riding my bike 3 times. So I've personally experienced this, although I wasn't concussed in any of them. But I have if anybody wants to...
Ayes and nays.
If anybody wants to feel what a grade 3 separated shoulder feels like, just touch my left shoulder here, and you can feel my collarbone still sticking up. But bike and pedestrian injuries and deaths are rising like crazy in this country, faster than vehicle deaths and injuries. And part of it's because people are distracted, but a lot more people are biking and walking. And so I think this is something we need to do. We've validated this policy repeatedly. I'd hope you'd pass the bill.
Senator Servell, question for you.
Yeah.
I've seen these markings as you approach a stoplight where you'll have a double line for the bicycle to traverse, and then as it gets close to the light, it becomes a dotted line. That is the time for an automobile to make the turn. What would be the difference in terms of a penalty, or if you hit somebody on the while they're in between the double lines, double solid lines, that's one thing. What happens if you happen to hit somebody while you're turning into your turn lane and you cross the dotted line on the road that is also going to be shared by the bicyclist at some point?
Well, crossing the dotted line would not be, first of all, in the first code section here, 462816.1, the way that's drafted, that's a class 1 misdemeanor. A violation of 462841 in here, which is going into the bike lane, just going into the bike lane to pass into the car, that's a traffic infraction. Maximum penalty is $250. So if you go into the lane, and all you do is go in the lane, you cross a solid line, not a dotted line. You cross a solid line, you can be fined up to $250. If you cross the solid line and hit a cyclist and you were careless or negligent under the statute, then you're in class 1 misdemeanor territory.
But if you hit a cyclist, closer to the light where there is the dotted line, and you just happen to not see him, what would be the penalty there?
If you hit them in a careless or negligent manner and they received a serious injury consistent with the malicious wounding statute, then it would be a class 1 misdemeanor. If it was a non-serious injury, they just fell off their bike and got road rash, or fell off their bike and got a scrape, it would be it wouldn't fall into this vulnerable user statute. Because remember, to get into the vulnerable user statute, they have to be seriously injured.
But it would be ill-advised for the bicyclist to attempt to pass a vehicle as they approach, as they've hit those dotted lines, knowing that vehicle could be veering into a turn lane. Is that?
If their turn signal was on, it would be ill-advised. If their turn signal is not on, there would not be an issue with that.
Okay, thank you, Senator Serville. Any other questions from the committee?
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Senator Favola.
Thank you. On parts, the 46.2-841, I read your new language on C. My only concern is if localities don't put up signage, I don't know how motor vehicles will necessarily know that they're not supposed to pass a car by going into the bike lane, because what I see rather regularly in my neighborhood is folks want to make a right-hand turn. And there's only one lane, which is, directing traffic to go straight through the light, but they want to go right. So they frequently move over to the bike lane if nobody's in it and turn right. And that would be illegal, according to your bill, unless they met these exceptions, weather conditions or an accident or an emergency situation.
And that's the problem we're seeking to address.
I get that.
Many law enforcement think it's currently illegal. But there was, I think, the chief of police in Haymarket, had expressed some concern about whether or not it was clearly illegal under the code, and which is what initially generated this bill probably 4 years ago. But I have the exact same problem in many parts of my district, where people get in a big hurry, somebody stops to make a left turn, and somebody wants to use the bike lane to get around a car, and that's very dangerous if you're a cyclist and somebody decides to hop into the lane while you're passing at full speed.
So why isn't there a requirement that signage be accompanying this language?
Because the signage is on the ground. It says it's a bike lane. There's a bike symbol in the lane. It's for bikes. And, there's obviously going to have to be some ongoing education for motorists in this, in terms of the DMV and its tests and all that kind of stuff. But
Senator
thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I don't mean to delay this, but people don't understand. They obviously know it's a bike lane. They don't know that they can't cut into it to turn right. And I really do think there needs to be some kind of signage requirement if we're going to enforce this, if this is going to be enforced. Because otherwise you're going to get a lot of people saying, I didn't know, and,
Right.
And is there a fiscal impact with this?
No.
Bill, because it's a class 1 misdemeanor, which
No.
So you're sure there's no fiscal impact?
Class 1 misdemeanors don't have fiscal impacts.
Correct, but sometimes
they're local jails.
Sometimes I've had to send bills to finance, even though they were class 1.
If it creates a prior offense, which for offense that could become a felony, sometimes you'll see a fiscal impact on a misdemeanor. But this isn't a predecessor.
All right. Any other questions from the committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Senator Serville, I think this, I understand what Senator Favola is saying, but I think we pass laws all the time up here, whether it's having to deal with larcenies or whatever. We can't have a sign for everything. But I do think the DMV can maybe, put it into their testing procedures, at some point in time. I think this is a good bill. So I would move to report the bill.
We have a motion to report. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, somebody came from Alexandria to speak. Don't know if he wants to
excuse
say
me.
anything or. Do you want to speak or? He came from Alexandria and he was injured in a pedestrian collision, got an injury, and he wanted to say something, I think.
Very good. Welcome, sir. Just state your name.
My name is Mike Doyle. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia. And what I remember was the words, "Look out," because I was in a crosswalk with a right-of-way, and a driver turning left was so focused on the car in front of him that he didn't look left, and he took me out. And he crashed into me, fractured my forehead, damaged my leg. I'm still in neurological rehab 3 years later. And I'm a lucky one. I survived. I started a group called Families for Safe Streets in Alexandria. We have a core of people that have been crash survivors and other people that have lost family members to drivers who were not obeying the law, failure to yield. And under the current state law, when that happens, we've had family members who lost their father or lost their wife, mother of two, and the current law is just a $250 fine, $50 to $250 fine. We have a crisis in traffic fatalities, traffic violence. It's a health crisis. Part of the prescription, I humbly suggest, it's not the only thing, but if you increase penalties when people are severely injured, crippled, or killed, maybe some drivers will slow down and be cautious. There's other things that need to be done, but this is one prescription we believe is very important.
Thank you, sir. And I'm so terribly sorry that happened to you. But I think because of the work of senators like Senator Serval and delegates, we are trying to recognize that we have to share the road, these bills such as Senator Serval's do heighten our awareness of our responsibilities, and I think that's a very good thing. It's our obligation to try to make things better, and I hope you recover very, very soon. Thank you so much for testifying. Anyone else care to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone in opposition? I believe we have a motion and a second to pass the bill. Please open the rolls. Vote aye in favor, nay if you're against.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Ayes 10, noes 5. The bill passes. If we could, if you could, we need to get to Senator Reeves, who is Senator Reeves. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I hate to impede on the committee's time. I just got kind of ambushed by VDOT on the bill that there's a conflict with regard to VDOT on line 27 on the bill. Apparently, the feds don't have a definition for auto cycles, so it could deal with some funding. So if I could get just a pass maybe for a week on this thing, that I literally just found out about it.
With no objection, we will pass this by for the week. We'll catch it at our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Reeves. All right. I believe we could someone contact Senator Hashmi? Okay, good. While we're waiting for Senator Hashmi, Senator Suderline, could we have you present Senate Bill 63? We'll get our committee stuff. I just want to make sure she knew. Thank you. Senator Suderline, tell us about Senate Bill 63.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 63 is a pretty quick read. It's a bill that we've backed on a bipartisan basis, I think, 4 consecutive years. What it does is it makes it so that it's no longer possible for 11 miles over a posted speed limit in Virginia to carry a Class 1 misdemeanor up to a year in jail and or a $2,500 fine. When the speed limit was increased to 70 on several interstates in Virginia, it created the situation where 11 miles over was deemed reckless automatically. And so the consequence of that is people are charged with a Class 1 misdemeanor. This would raise it from automatically reckless at 80 to 85. There's been several consequences of this. Most people aren't going to go away for a year in jail or have to pay a $25 fine. The reality is what they're likely going to have to do is hire an attorney who will represent them in an easy case for the attorney, but it will be very expensive for the client, the Virginian that's having to pay for it. And so they have a pretty hefty fine that they're just paying to their attorney in addition to what they pay the Commonwealth. And we see this a lot in my part of the Commonwealth. You have students from the eastern part of the state that are coming to Virginia Tech or Radford, and their parents have paid, they're helping them pay often tuition for them to go there. We even had a member of the Senate in the previous term where this happened to their child. They got picked up in between the 81 and 85 threshold, and that resulted in them being charged with the Class 1 misdemeanor. So the parent gladly paid the attorney fee so that they would not. I think you'll hear from a few folks that didn't like the bill in the previous years, and be happy to answer that in a moment.
Thank you, Senator Suderline. Any questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Sproul.
Senator Suderline. And so are we trying to make sure that we want to pay Scott Surveyor more money? So the question was that when would it stop? I mean, 80, that's kind of fast. Even when I come to Richmond, and I'm a political driver, more time in the nighttime than the daytime. But so how fast do you call safe? What about the safety of it? You're concerned about a Class 1 misdemeanor. I'm concerned about losing somebody's life, your life, and the person that you might hit. So that concern is something. How fast do you want to go to make sure that they won't have to pay that fine or go to jail? The law is the law. So are we trying to usurp the law so they can go speed higher more? I'd rather for them to pay Scott Surveyor money than to kill themselves or kill somebody else.
Amen. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Suderline.
So if you don't want to have to pay a fine at all, or Scott Survell, or any other competent attorney, you go 70 miles an hour or below. So under my bill, if it were enacted into law, driving 81 miles an hour would still be 11 miles over the speed limit. You could still get picked up. Driving 84 would be 14 miles. You're going to get picked up for that. I would suggest that driving 11 miles over the speed limit on the interstate should not be treated so disproportionately more aggressive than if you're driving 44 miles an hour in a 25-mile-per-hour residential zone. I don't think that 11 miles per hour over the speed limit is 11 miles over the speed limit, but it should not be automatically deemed reckless. If you're driving, reckless driving is defined in the code as one disregard for life and property. I think 11 miles over the speed limit, there could be penalty for that, but it should not rise to the same level as if you're going 21 miles an hour over in a 45.
Other questions from the committee? Anyone here to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Welcome.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chris Legault for Nationwide Insurance and the APCI. APCI is an insurance trade association, about 1,100 companies. Many of them write automobile insurance here in the state. The concern that we have is really multiple reasons here, not just a few. The two factors that drive up insurance premiums more than anything else: crash frequency, crash severity. With this bill, you're going to get a twofer. Crashes are bound to increase, and they're going to be much, much worse when the speeds are elevated to 80, 85 miles an hour before reckless driving kicks in. It's going to increase braking distances and the distance traveled when you are trying to react to something. If you're going that fast, that extends that distance out, making it harder to come to a safe stop. More importantly than almost anything, it increases crash energy forces. Let me make that live for you. When we increase a speed limit from 40 to 60 miles an hour, for example, that's a 50% increase in the speed, okay? But it's a 125% increase in the crash energy forces that have to be managed by the seatbelt and the airbag system. That's a lot of energy, and at the excessive speeds that this bill would help to generate, you're going to get much more severe injuries. The likelihood is very strong of that. One thing I would slightly correct the patron on, if this law passes and there's no reckless, the reckless would kick in at 86. It's in excess of 85. So reckless below 86 would not be reckless anymore, okay? One thing I would say, speed is a huge factor in most fatal accidents. 40% of the fatal accidents in Virginia have speed as one of the factors. You increase the speed like this, you're endangering the public generally. And I hope that means more, as Senator Spruill has indicated, that means more than saving someone from having a criminal record or the need for a criminal defense attorney to get them out of a reckless driving ticket. So I'd urge the committee to defeat the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jordan Chillen with Williams Mullen. I'm representing AAA, and we oppose the bill for the safety reasons that was just discussed. And any questions?
Questions for the witness? Thank you. Senator Suderline, do you want to wrap up?
Yes, and I didn't,
Excuse me. I did want to ask if the state police had a position on this matter. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, Ron Maxey, Captain, Virginia State Police. State Police has no position on this. This is a penalty. We would still take enforcement action, as the patron noted. So for us, this is just a penalty.
I have a question. Do you believe that taking the speed limit up by 5 miles per hour, that people will cheat up towards that new number, knowing that it's not reckless driving, but being sort of willing to risk the speeding ticket, that people who would ordinarily go 79 or to avoid the 80 threshold might start traveling at 84 to avoid the 85 threshold, knowing that they're risking a speeding ticket, but at the same time avoiding the reckless driving?
Mr. Chairman, again, the department doesn't have a position personally, years of enforcement on the road. I would say taking away that penalty and moving it up would, in my opinion, encourage people to start pushing that envelope and picking their speed up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Suderline, wrap it up.
Thank you. Addressing a few things. One, you can get pulled over for driving 71 miles an hour and a 70 for reckless driving if the law enforcement that observes it believes that you are driving in such a manner that you're disregarding the life and property of others, because perhaps it's raining and you are not simply going 1 mile over what the speed limit ought to be, you're going significantly. So that's what reckless driving is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be a hard deck, sort of traffic trap that we have. I'd also point out, I did not mention the criminal record in the presentation this time, but yes, if you do get convicted, it's a criminal record for you. If you have a secret clearance, you will be in trouble with that. You will lose that clearance. If you're convicted, it will ask a question about it, and it will not just be an easy day through it. So I appreciate the committee's observation of this. Hope it'll be the pleasure to pass it again.
Senator Cosgrove?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I actually am supportive of the bill. I do have to correct the senator. You will not automatically lose a security clearance for the Class 1
I
misdemeanor.
didn't say you would automatically.
Mr. Chairman.
That was implied.
Down here.
Anyone else? Senator Servo.
Speaking of the bill,
You have the floor.
even though this is going to cost me some money, I typically have supported this bill. But a conviction for Class 1 misdemeanor will cost you your TSA pre-check and your global entry, which is something a lot of people I know have. I know it costs that, and a lot of people's security clearances do hire counsel specifically because they just don't want to deal with the drama at work, even though it usually doesn't affect their security clearance. It sometimes necessitates the need for a conversation or just some disclosure or something. And just the last thing I'll say is, remember that this statute does not change whether it's reckless driving to do 20 plus the speed limit. The only scenario this is really affecting is where the speed limit is 65 or higher. Because if it's 55, you're doing 75, you're reckless, right? The speed limit's 60, at 80, you're still reckless. It's at when the speed limit is 65 miles an hour that this bill is changing what the rule is. So I think it passed 35 to 5 last session, so we probably got to end the discussion.
Senator Favola.
Senator McClellan.
Oh, excuse me, Senator McClellan.
I have a question. I'm not sure if. Okay.
Sorry.
I'm not sure who can answer it, but it's a two-part. Who sets the specific speed limits for a particular road?
So there's first the part where the general, by law, there's the threshold. I mean, the General Assembly and the governor signed a law increasing and allowing it to 70, and then VDOT has the authority after that.
Okay, so follow-up question.
Senator McClellan.
If there are particular highways where, in VDOT's opinion, the car should travel at a set maximum speed, and this bill passes, they could take that into account and change the speed limit on that road, couldn't they? I think Joanne wants to answer.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe that is correct. Basically, the law establishes certain speeds for certain types of roads generally, but then VDOT can change those speeds if there's an engineering study that shows that the road cannot handle a particular speed or the speed needs to be reduced, but it doesn't really, I don't believe it has to do anything to do with reckless driving per se.
Well, I'd like
Thank
to
you.
offer my perspective on that.
Senator Suderline.
In the Roanoke Valley, we have the safety corridor, which there's a speed limit and there's a safety corridor. Those are two separate things. But the speed limit, if you're driving through Botetourt, you have the S curves and the speed limit will lower. Then you get back to the straightaways, it'll be 70. And then you get to the Roanoke Valley, near where Senator Edwards and I live, where it's much more densely populated, the speed limit drops. And then it goes up to 70, even though you're on straightaways, because that was what VDOT determined was best years ago. So it's not based on reckless driving as much as it's based on all the driving.
Well, I guess, Mr. Chair, speaking to the bill.
Senator McClellan.
So, and I have voted for this in the past because I agree with you that in changing the speed limit, we really opened the door with who is going to be charged with reckless driving. And I don't think we fully appreciated that when we made that change. But here's my concern. The speed limits are set based on what VDOT thinks is safe to travel on that road. It is a fact of human nature that drivers drive based on how they drive. And for some people, they pay attention to the speed limit, and some don't. And some say, well, if the speed limit is 55, I know I have a cushion, but I'm not going to go above that cushion. And my concern is when we change the cushion, that is going to impact behavior. And there are some roads that are already dangerous right now. Some highways, 81's one of them, going up and down 95 in certain parts. And so I am more persuaded than in the past about how this change is going to impact driving behavior in a way that could lead to more deaths. And I don't know how to balance that. Maybe the way to balance that is having a separate penalty for this particular reckless driving. But until we figure out how to balance that, I'm going to have to vote no this time.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the patron?
Chairman, I'd just like to
Senator Cosgrove.
just like to speak to the bill. You know, the governor's talked about, criminal justice reform. We're talking about decriminalizing marijuana, et cetera, et cetera. What David is trying to do here is just basically do what I think is a fairness issue as far as the speed limits go. Again, right now, it's any 20 miles over the limit anywhere. If you're in a 25-mile-an-hour zone and you do 45, you can be tagged with reckless. And it's really up to the discretion of the officer who pulls you anyway. But that automatic threshold of 80 miles an hour, especially when we have speed limits of 70 miles an hour, I think is overbearing. And that's why I voted for this in the past. I understand the concerns about the risks of increased speed, but I think this is more like a fairness issue. So, with that,
Chairman?
Just like to, before I ask for, I'd just like to say, I remember when this bill was up to increase the speed limit. It was deja vu all over again. I think Chris has memorized his speech on behalf of Nationwide, and at that point in time, I knew we were making things. I thought at that time we were making things more dangerous because of the whole idea of when you go up 5 miles an hour, it isn't just a small percentage increase in potential damage. It's geometric. It's not arithmetic. It just keeps going up. We warned everyone when this bill, when we took the speed limit to 70, that this is what it was. Everybody knew going in this is what it was. And I just can't vote for something that I know people are going to push and start driving higher speeds because they know it's just speeding and not reckless driving. And I think it's dangerous. And I believe that I'm afraid I'll have to join Senator McClellan in voting against the bill. But do we have a motion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, before you do, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Sproul.
Speaking of the bill, I just asked you to consider the impact on hitting another car or someone going 25, 45 versus the impact on hitting another car and yourself at going 80. Just consider the impact. That's the difference. So when we are concerned about being fairness, I'm concerned about saving your life and my life. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? I have a move to report. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor of reporting the bill, vote yay. Those opposed, vote nay. Open the roll. And
It never has in the last 4 years.
how
could it have to go to finance?
Senator Eric, do we receive the letter? Okay.
Finance, right?
Yes, sir, Mr.
That should be,
Chairman.
could we? Okay, the motion is to report the bill and re-refer to finance. We have a second. All in favor, vote yay. All opposed, vote nay.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Ayes 9, no 6. Congratulations, Senator Suderline.
Yeah, I love pressing Mark's proxy on that one. Thank you.
We still have Senator Hashmi's bill. She's been notified. I know she's running a subcommittee over in Health and Ed. But do we have another patron, Senator Boy Scout? Senator Boysko, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have Senate Bill 644, and I have an amendment in the nature of a substitute, but as soon as I walked in, I was told that we might have yet another amendment to make as well to address some concerns of VDOT.
Pass out? And Senator Boysko, you're saying we may have a line amendment to the substitute?
Mm-hmm. And I haven't had a chance to really even had a chance to read it yet, so I can't even address what the challenge was, so I don't know if you want me
Would
to.
you like to take the bill by for the week?
You want to do that? Would that be the easiest thing? So
I
that
think, when I look at the overall transportation docket, I don't think we would be. This is 246, Senator Servell's bill.
So 644, SB 644.
Rather than handing that out, do we have a motion to, without objection, we'll pass this by.
Thank you.
For the week. I have two bills also here from Senator McDougal, and I'm going to take the privilege of the chair here to deal with them. They're Code Commission bills to correct errors and things that are discontinent in the code. The first one, if I could pull up Senate Bill 524, deals with motor vehicle dealer advertising. It's an amendment to 46.2, 1582, and it retains certain text from the repealed 46.2, 1580. The repealed language in 46.2, 1580 stated that the Commissioner of the Department of Motor Vehicles is solely responsible for the enforcement of provisions related to motor vehicle dealer advertising. This section was adopted in 1989 and has not been amended since that time. Today, enforcement is handled by the Motor Vehicle Dealer Board. Therefore, the repealed text is inaccurate. The remainder of 46.2, 1580 is findings and not substantive law, and therefore recommended for repeal. Section 46.2, 1503.4 is included in the bill to fix the cross-reference to 46.2, 1580. This recommendation from the Code Commission is pursuant to its responsibility to maintain the Code of Virginia. Sections came to Code Commission's attention as part of its ongoing review of sections that may be obsolete or that were codified but not set out in the code. The Department of Motor Vehicles has no objection. And if anybody could tell me what I just said and explain it to me, I would be glad. But I think these are normal Code Commission bills. Do I have a motion on the bill?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to report the bill. All in favor, vote aye. Opposed, vote nay. All right. All right, we have some other matters here on the Code Commission from Senator McDougal. This is Senate Bill 525 dealing with bus widths. The repealed section 46.2.1106 and 46.1.1107 authorizes the Commissioner of Highways to permit the operation of passenger buses wider than 96 inches but no wider than 102 inches on highways in Arlington and certain other counties upon application of the county covered by the statutes. These sections are no longer needed as 46.2.1105 already authorizes passenger buses to have a total width of 102 inches. Additionally, 46.2.1108 contains an application process for the use of wide buses for all counties in Virginia. Overall, repealing these sections makes the code more consistent. This recommendation from the Code Commission is pursuant to its responsibility, yada, yada, yada.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Cosgrove.
I wholeheartedly recommend that we report this fine bill.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to pass Senate Bill 525. If you open the rolls, vote in favor, yay. Opposed, nay.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill passes. Senator McDougal does well. I want to get on the Code Commission. You can get your batting average up. Senator Hashmi, is she here? And, oh, we still have Senator Serval having one. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we're doing my bill now?
We got it.
Okay.
Do we have a substitute on this?
Yeah, substitute. The
Okay,
bill's
go ahead.
gone from 2 lines to like 30 pages.
Do we have a motion on the substitute? We have a motion and a second on the substitute. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this bill originated from a situation with a constituent I had who did not want to have to choose between male or female on their driver's license. Apparently, there's other states that allow you to either put X for your gender or put non-binary gender down. And so my bill, apparently the DMV already has plans to do this, and they were kind of in the process of doing it, but they also think that having it clear in the code would sort of backstop what they're trying to do. The DMV doesn't have any fiscal impact, but the Supreme Court just notified me that it's going to cost them about $40,000 to reprogram their computer. And so I just got handed I'm in the wrong business, but I just got handed a fiscal impact statement for that. So this probably needs to go to finance now if we do report it. But I think it's I think it's a good bill, and I hope we pass it. The substitute you have just seeks to spell it out more clearly in a lot of other code sections instead of just putting it in one separate two-line statute.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
Can I hear from the commissioner, please?
Yeah.
Commissioner Holcomb, how is this going to impact the federal Real ID requirements?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Cosgrove, it'll have no impact on Real ID. We've already asked the feds, and they have no, because sex is not a required field under the Real ID.
Okay. All right. How about that?
Other questions from the committee? Is there anyone here would like to speak in favor of the bill? Senator Suderline.
I've got a question, not for Senator Cosgrove asked the question, I was going to ask the commissioner.
I just wanted to, hope state police or someone from law enforcement would come up and just share any position or non-position on the bill. And I mostly just want to know how they think it will affect their work one way or the other.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, to answer the question, the department has no position on the bill itself. We do encounter these situations on the side of the road where determining gender is difficult. I would say this came up just as we were coming in here. If this is being referred to finance, we are in the process of checking to see how this might impact our VSIN systems. For the same reason, again, I'd apologize for not having a chance to talk. It just came up as we were coming here. So if this is being referred, we'd like to have a chance to possibly review that also to see how our computer systems might be impacted by the change. But roadside enforcement, it would have no impact.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
If I might ask Maxie, by the way, you always do such a great job. You really do. And this may be a little delicate question, but if for some reason you have to search an individual, I mean, it's not usual that a male searches a female and vice versa. Is this going to cause any kind of consternation or delay or?
We have procedures for a pat down on an opposite sex person. Typically, we would, if possible, call somebody of the same sex to come and conduct that, but we do have some procedures.
Do you have
not quite as
officers who are
thorough.
ex?
No, we would sometimes not know, I guess, until we know.
Okay, all right.
And of course, if you on say a DUI and you take somebody and turn them over at the local jail, then it's on them to worry about any search procedures or what have you once they're incarcerated.
Clearly, we would be going by, unless we had proof otherwise, by the gender that they claimed and reported to us at the time.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Anyone else care to testify? In opposition to the bill. Could you state your name?
Hello, Josh Hetzler. I'm the Legislative Counsel with the Family Foundation. We have various concerns about this bill. I think there's a lot of open questions. Usually I like to be more certain about what I can reasonably anticipate is going to happen with some of these gender-based issues. But this one seems to have just many open-ended questions. I think some of them were raised already. How would this impact privacy and law enforcement and other things? But really, I think a more fundamental question has to be asked, what is non-binary? Do we really know the impacts of that? You know, I just heard several of the committee members a couple of minutes ago on Senator Suderline's bill express great concern over raising the speed limit 5 miles an hour. And the reason you were concerned is because you recognize that human nature being what it is, people would be prone to abuse that. All right? Well, how much more
Mr.
when it
Chairman,
comes to something
is he
like
speaking against the previous bill now?
No,
I think he's drawing a parallel, Senator Suderline. First, go ahead.
I like your bill. But you can see what I mean. I'm obviously drawing a parallel. There's a lot of things we don't know. At the very least, I don't think it's ready for prime time, as they say. But and I just also want to mention this. There was a gentleman named Jamie Shoup, who's actually the first person in the United States in 2016 to receive the legal designation as non-binary. And only a few years later, last year, he publicly said that it was all a sham, that you can't be a non-binary person. I encourage you to read this article called "I Was America's First Non-Binary Person. It Was All a Sham." And the concern here is that what we're doing is we're allowing the opportunity, we're encouraging people who may be confused to now be able to play out that confusion in unhealthy ways. And just like Mr. Shoup, go through a lot of turmoil unnecessarily. So with that, I would ask you to oppose the bill.
All right. Senator McClellan.
I want to speak to the bill for a minute in response to what we just heard. First of all, if the federal government thought that there was a need to know someone's gender, they would have included a gender requirement on Real ID. They didn't. Since I'm the one that raised the concern on the previous bill about human nature being what it is, we as a government typically only limit human nature when it has an impact on safety or infringing the rights of others. Allowing someone to designate for themselves what their gender is, and if there is not an option on a form for them to identify what they are, changing that does not impact public safety or infringe on anybody else's rights. This Commonwealth, for reasons we all understand, in 1924 required a box on another government-issued ID, a birth certificate, and only gave two choices: white and colored. And as a result, Virginia Indians, who were neither, didn't get birth certificates because one man decided there was no such thing as a Virginia Indian, that everybody in Virginia was either white or colored. That was wrong. And so is this. If an individual cannot fill out an application that gives them an option to identify what they believe they are, for no reason, we should change that.
Thank you, Senator McClellan. Senator Serval, could you, did you want to say something additional?
Yes, just a question. Senator McClellan, if that is true, should a person be able to change on their license their height or their age, if they would like, if that's what they feel like?
Okay. Senator Serval, you want to wrap up?
Well, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just again reiterate the fact that the DMV was already planning on doing this anyway, and this bill will just bring code up to speed with what they were planning on doing. So I don't think it's particularly controversial, and if anything, we just need to get to finance to figure out if we can get the money to the Supreme Court to fix their computer.
Okay, the motion would be to, move to report and refer to finance. We have a first and a second on that. Open the roll. All in favor, vote yea. Opposed, nay.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Ayes 10, no 5. The bill passes. Without objection, Senator Hashmi is still tied up in her
Mr.
subcommittee.
Chairman, but before we do that, I think somebody needs to look at Senator Hashmi's bill. I think there's some verbiage difficulties with this. It's meant for people that park in an electric charging station. Be fined if they're not an electric car, but the way the verbiage in the bill itself just says a car capable of receiving an electric charge. Everybody can jump a car. So I'm just wondering if that's going to be causing a problem for her bill. Maybe she wants to have somebody at Legislative Services look at it.
Lisa, what is that something that we should bring to Senator Hashmi's attention?
I will look into it offline and follow up with her before the next meeting
Okay.
if it's a concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
So without objection, we'll pass Senator Hashmi's bill by for the day. Any other matters to come before the committee? If not, the committee will rise. Thank you very much. Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.